Sometimes revenge doesn't need to cost thousands of dollars or take months of planning. Sometimes all it takes is a $5 pack of cigarettes, one perfectly timed sentence, and a very strict parent standing in the wrong place at the right time. If you ever dreamed of serving justice to that one annoying coworker who just wouldn't quit, hit that like button, subscribe, and settle in, because this story proves that sometimes the pettiest revenge hits the hardest. Setting the stage, the supermarket grind. 40 years ago, back when I was just a teenager trying to make some gas money, I worked as a bag boy at a local supermarket. Picture fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, sticky tile floors, carts squeaking, and the endless beep of cash registers. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a job. Bag boys like me had one main task: pack groceries, hustle them to the customer's car, and keep the flow moving. It was exhausting at times, but mostly mindless. The kind of job where your body moves while your mind drifts. And of course, the kind of job where certain coworkers make your life harder than it needs to be. The antagonist, my teenage nemesis. There was one guy, about my age, who I just didn't get along with. Let's call him Brian. Even today, decades later, I can't quite remember what started our tension. Maybe it was little digs. Maybe it was his tone. Maybe it was just two teenagers with clashing egos. But I do remember the way he carried himself. Always a smirk, always a subtle jab, always trying to get under my skin. It wasn't explosive bullying. It was a drip, drip, drip of antagonism that makes you grit your teeth and fantasize about shutting someone up. The thing about Brian was that his parents were strict, very strict, especially about tobacco. Everyone knew it. His dad, especially, had zero tolerance for smoking. And as far as I knew, Brian didn't smoke. That detail will matter later. Workplace friction. Small cuts add up. When you're working a minimum wage job as a teen, you don't have much control. You clock in, take orders, and grind it out. And when a coworker decides you're their favorite target, it's hard to escape. Brian would accidentally leave me with extra carts to wrangle. He'd slide his share of bagging onto me when the store got busy. He'd make little snide remarks just loud enough for me to hear, with that smug grin plastered on his face. Was it life-ruining? No, but at 17, it felt like death by 1,000 cuts. I swallowed it for weeks. But deep down, I wanted one thing: payback. The spark: payday Friday. Fast forward to a Friday afternoon: payday. Back then, you had to physically line up to pick up your check at the front office. The line would snake through the front of the store with tired employees clutching their envelopes like treasure. That day, after picking up my check, I decided to treat myself. I bought 2 packs of cigarettes. I've long since quit, but back then it was a little rebellion of my own. With the cigarettes tucked in a bag, I walked toward the exit, and that's when I saw him, Brian, standing in line to collect his paycheck. And standing right next to him, his father. Suddenly, an idea hit me. A wicked, spur-of-the-moment idea so perfect it felt like the universe had handed me a gift. The petty revenge. 5 seconds of glory. As I passed Brian, I stopped. I pulled one of the packs of cigarettes from my bag. I held it out casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, and said loud enough for his dad to hear, "Hey, man, here's that pack of cigarettes I owed you." Time froze. Brian's face went pale, his eyes wide with panic. He immediately stammered, No, I don't. He doesn't owe me anything." But the damage was already done. His father's face hardened. That strict, disappointed look only a parent can deliver. The kind that says we're going to have a long talk when we get home. And me? I just smiled, tucked the cigarettes back into my bag, and walked out the door. The reaction: delicious fallout. Behind me, I could feel the storm brewing. Brian's denials, his father's sharp tone, the tension of a kid being caught in something he couldn't easily explain. And the beauty of it? I hadn't accused him of anything. I hadn't said he smoked. I hadn't even said it was true. I had simply handed him a pack and implied a debt. His own father's imagination did the rest. It was a perfect trap, and he walked right into it. The aftermath: lingering satisfaction. I don't remember what happened afterward. I don't know what his dad said to him that night, or whether it caused a blow-up at home. But I do remember Brian's face, the instant panic, the desperate denial, the way he looked at me like I had just set his whole world on fire with one sentence. And that memory, that single petty 5-second revenge, has stayed with me for 40 years. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks. But that's the beauty of it. Revenge doesn't always have to be grand or destructive. Sometimes, the sweetest victories are the smallest ones. One sentence, one gesture, one perfectly placed moment of humiliation. Brian wanted to make me feel powerless. But in that moment, I reminded him I could flip the script anytime I wanted. The lesson? Sometimes the tiniest acts of pettiness leave the biggest marks. Respect goes both ways. And if you spend your time smirking and underestimating people, don't be surprised when they find a way to wipe that grin off your face. If this story gave you chills or made you smirk at the thought of perfectly timed revenge, smash that like button and tell me in the comments, what's the pettiest revenge you've ever seen? And of course, subscribe for more stories where karma always finds its target.